Hello my friends and welcome to Domestic Diva DIY. I'm so glad that you have decided to press play on this video. Today I'm sharing with you 13 of my favorite coastal DIYs that I have shared over the year or so over on my channel, and I kind of put them all together so that way you don't have to go looking for any of them. So thank you also for being patient with me with these funny uploads that have been happening on my channel. I am still working on this DIY home project that we have started doing, and it's almost done. I kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I can't wait to share it all with you. So let's get started. So the first thing that I did is I removed all of these backings of the frame because I will not be using those, and then I give the frames one coat of Annie Sloan chalk paint in Duck Egg Blue. I absolutely love this chalk paint. As you can see, I'm just about out and I have to constantly add water just to get it back to its life because it kind of dries out because it's right at the bottom. So, but it does give me enough paint to do one solid coat on these frames. I let the frames dry, and once they were dry I started assembling them, and I used hot glue as well as painter's tape just to keep everything in place. I also wanted to mention that you need to paint all the sides. I originally, as you can see, did not paint all the sides, but then once I was putting it into action with decorating it, I noticed that I wasn't loving that the black was showing, so I ended up going back and painting that side as well. So here it is. I think this Duck Egg Blue by Annie Sloan paint is a perfect coastal decor color. I think this lantern turned out so cute, so simple, and it's a great addition to my bathroom decor, which is where I will be placing it. For my next project, I am using this old, it used to be citronella candle bucket. There was a citronella candle in there. I did pick this up at, I'm pretty sure it was Dollar Tree, but it might have been Dollarama 2 years ago. And I kept the bucket because I always thought that I might use it. I loved the blue, but I wasn't crazy about the rust on it. So the first thing that I did was I removed the handle because I wasn't going to use the handle, and this took a little while to figure out what I was going to do, and I ended up just cutting, bending the pieces out and pulling them out. I was originally going to cut it, but this was easier. And then I took this burlap rope or nautical rope, jute rope, whatever you want to call it, that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and wrapped it all around the bucket using hot glue. Once I was completely done, wrapped all the way around, even the lip on top, I took this Rust-Oleum white chalk paint, and this is very wet chalk paint. I added more water to it because when you are painting anything that has like fabric-like texture, you want it to be wet so it saturates the paint into the fabric. So here it is all done, and I let it dry for a little bit, and this is what it looks like on my shelf, all nicely decorated with a little planter in it. I think it looks really nice. Like I said, again, a great addition to my farmhouse coastal bathroom decor. We are going to be creating for this one. You will need some greenery, assorted ones, whatever you have on hand, a 14-inch diameter wreath form from Dollar Tree, as well as some burlap. Now I got this burlap from burlapfabric.com, and then you are going to while I am using some of these beautiful sola wood flowers, and I will have a link down below for you to check them out. I have them in assorted neutral styles and colors, and these can be painted. I will be keeping them as they are, except maybe one of them I will paint in a color. They're super easy to work with, and I absolutely love the way they look. So as you might have guessed it, I am making a wreath, and I am starting off by wrapping it with this burlap ribbon. I love using this burlap, and especially for this, it gives it a good solid base, but it also looks good. I am using hot glue to secure the burlap in place, but I don't hot glue the whole like every wraparound. I do at the beginning just so it stays in place, and then I do couple rolls over, and then I add more. So once it's all wrapped up, it's when the fun starts. Now I start using my greenery and my flowers. So I just kind of wanted to know where my starting point and my finishing point was. So I am gluing a piece of greenery to each end. I am very excited because this is my first video that I'm creating in my new craft room. I had moved my craft room into a different area, and I'm hoping that this works really well. I have everything in one place, so I don't have to go to a separate area looking for things. And I will be sharing my craft room organization, declutter, and setup over on my home channel within next week or so. Just trying to finish up all the little odds and ends that I have left. Now I'm going to start with adding my flowers. So I'm just going through all these flowers and picking out which ones I want to use. These are so versatile because, as you can see, they're very neutral. And I find that some of them almost look a little coastal, but at the same time, if you added a little bit of color to them, you can use them for really any season or any style of decor. Once I have all my flowers picked out, I just choose how to assemble them first without gluing, and then I add the glue to them once I know where I want each flower to go. I think this is a good way to do things because you can move them around without being glued, and really picking the best spot for all of them before you actually make it more permanent. So I have decided that that little white flower is what I'm going to paint, and I am using Copenhagen blue in my acrylic paint. The acrylic paint came from Dollarama, and I'm just using a small brush to apply the paint. You can also dip these into like water and paint mixture, but I wanted to almost dry brush the paint on so some of the white shows through as well. So that's why I was using just a flat paintbrush. I think this blue is perfect to give that nautical look. And I think some of these white big flowers almost remind me of corals. And I think this is going to turn out really, really good. So once I have that painted, I just set it aside for a few minutes. It does not take long for them to dry because, like I said, I was just dry brushing it. So while that's drying, I'm going to assemble my almost like a focal point, which I'm using these two large flowers. And then in the middle, I'm going to glue my blue. So that will be my kind of center, like I said, my focal point. And then I'm going to build on just by adding different flowers and greenery as I go. Play around first and before I glue. So I think I'm happy with the placements, and now I'm going to start gluing them. And at this point is when I started to realize that I might not be using any of the greenery because I was just loving how the flowers looked on their own without any greenery.
So as you can see, I have removed the greenery off and I just love it as it is. Just the flowers on their own. And I think that blue right there in the middle looks really good. And now it's time to work on the other side where I want to incorporate some more of that blue as well as some of that wood color that the flowers have. So I've have this nautical ship wheel. It was actually a picture frame that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I've had it for a while, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to incorporate. I wanted to also use this welcome sign that is a bottom of a windmill that comes from Dollar Tree, and I just think adding a little bit of that galvanized look to it, it will just make it look even more rustic. So trying to figure out how to do this, I had actually decided to almost not go with this straight line of these garden what are they called, garden signs, but I was gonna build a wall with them, which I will share shortly. But before I went on doing that, I give this ship wheel a light color of this same blue, and that's gonna be my other color on the opposite side. So while the ship wheel is drying, I'm going to assemble my wall, or should I say more like a fence, and I'm using more of these garden wood pieces. They're like for garden labeling. And I have tons of them because I picked them all up a while back. I think I got like 10 bags of them. So I've been working through them quite a bit. So I'm just staggering them from the smallest to the largest. And then I'm going to add one more here that will be the longest. And then I'm also going to use two of them for underneath the welcome, because I wasn't quite happy how it looked on its own. So I wanted to add a little bit more wood to it. So I will be assembling two more by cutting them just to be a touch longer than the welcome sign, and also gluing them together. Once they're glued together, I'm using my favorite stain that came from your dollar store and more, and I am going to stain them. This will give me that look, that wood look that I'm going for to match the flowers. I have also decided to add some of that stain over top of the blue stain that's on the ship wheel. I think this just made that ship wheel look a little bit more rustic, more aged. And now it's time to assemble this together on top of the wreath. I am obviously using hot glue to assemble. You want to make sure that it's in the middle so it's not off on an angle. You could also glue this on the bottom instead of on top, but I kind of like the way it looked on top instead. did struggle a little bit with this galvanized piece to stay in place, so I am just using some of my clips to hold it in place. Now at this point, I thought this piece needed a little bit more just at the bottom, so I am just using some of my jute rope as kind of a nautical rope, and I'm just tying a knot on each end and gluing it on the bottom. I think this just added a little bit of a decorative piece to the bottom as well, and even more that coastal nautical look. So once it was done, when I thought it was done anyways, I removed the clips. I ended up having to add the clip on one more time just beside the W. Now I'm adding some nautical rope here on top as well. Just this will be for my hanging, and to finish it off, I am going to glue the ship's wheel. I almost forgot to glue the ship's wheel. So what do you think? I would love to know down in the comments. I absolutely love the way it turned out. I think it's gonna look perfect with all the other pieces that I have created in this coastal nautical decor theme. For my next project, I will be making a wall decor. It's a compass, and I find these look very coastal like, and I love the way this one ended up turning out. So for this, you will need some wood. This can be wood that you had laying around at home. It could be a sign that you want to reuse from Dollar Tree. I also picked up a broomstick from Dollarama that I cut into pieces. I had some knobs left over, some wire, garden wire from Dollar Tree, as well as some jute rope that I picked up at Dollar Tree. And then I'm also going to be using some hot glue and some spray paint, as well as some screws. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, my name is Sonja and you're watching Domestic Diva DIY. I post DIY videos 3 times a week. So if this is something that interests you, I would love it if you consider subscribing and pressing the notification bell. So first thing that I'm gonna do is I am going to assemble this because I want to be able to get it to dry in time. Hot glue this like this. So like I mentioned, this was a broomstick that I cut to make sure that it's the right distance, that it is right in the middle. So once the glue had time to dry, I take this wire and I cut it and double it up, and then I just wrap it around. This is more for decoration rather than anything else. And now I'm going to spray paint this. Oh, actually, not quite yet. I almost forgot a step. I'm going to attach these to the ends. Now I'm gonna spray paint them. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry. before I move on to anything else. So this wood, I'm going to assemble it this way, just making sure I have all the wood I want at the front and at the back. So I'm going to flip it, and for now I'm just going to hot glue it together, but we'll add the screws in. This is just to keep it in place. There we go. Going to just clean it up a little bit. So now I'm going to just do some writing on here, and I'm going to, of course, try and use my Sharpie water-based paint marker in black. So I'm going to add a little bit of black paint to this spray painted thing, just to make it a little bit more rustic. So now I'm going to hot glue this to the wood. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it looks like. I've decided I'm not going to add the rope. I'm going to wait till I get the chain. So I'm just going to show you how it looks propped up against the wall. I absolutely love the way this turned out.
Now, I have been doing several different DIYs over the years with these vases. I've had so many of them. My sister-in-law used them in her wedding, and we kind of all ended up with a whole bunch of them. So I'm down to my very last one. So then I had ended up picking up ones to go with it, but I wanted it to be a little bit different size. So I have picked up this one for $3.50 at Dollarama, which is a bit wider and a bit shorter, and then a much shorter one for $1.25 from Dollarama. I love using glass for different types of decor. I think I'm going to use these as my candle holders for a room that I'm redoing with. So for this I will also be using some rope. This is the jute rope, jute rope, and then some hot glue. It is a fairly simple DIY, but I think it's gonna be perfect for my decor. So I'm going to get started, and like I said, it's very simple. So I'm just going to try and remove these stickers. Sometimes they're not very easy to remove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with wrapping the rope, and I'm only going to go about quarter way up. This hot glue is extremely hot, and I tend to always burn myself with it. So for the first row, I like to add more hot glue than the rest of them, because it's almost like a base that will hold the rope in place. And I try not to go way too much with rope, because I don't want too much leakage, because it'll be bumpy down a little bit. For the second row, I don't put as much. But you still want it to stay in place somewhat. This would also look really good if you had the thick nautical rope. There we go. That's the first one, and I just wanted to have a more accurate measure, so I measured a quarter way up. So this one is 20 centimeters long, so a quarter way would be 5. So I just put a little line that you can't see. Just so I know where to stop my rope, so they're kind of all somewhat even. And this will mark off my starting point and my finishing point too. And now I'm going to do this one as well. think they look absolutely stunning. I can't wait to use them in my new space, and I haven't quite decided whether I'm just gonna leave them like this, add some candles, maybe even sand. I'm not quite sure, but nevertheless they do look stunning in my opinion, just as they are. I am using some tongue depressors or large popsicle sticks, a picture from Dollar Tree, couple of the votive candle glass holders from Dollar Tree, as well as I will be using Mod Podge and some food coloring in blue, because I will be creating somewhat of a frosted paint kind of glass, frosted glass paint. So I start off with removing the canvas and all the staples that are in this, because I will be using the frame for this project. So once I have removed the canvas, I am now moving on to adding the popsicle sticks, because I needed a base for this frame. And I'm just cutting the popsicles to size using an X-Acto knife. I'm sure there is a better way to cut. I did end up poking myself with it. But this is what I am working with. So I cut, I think it took me like 6 of them or so, or maybe it was 8. And then once I had them all cut to size, I proceeded to hot gluing them to the bottom. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all of my bee and lemon decor that I just finished off with a mega video that I posted last Sunday. So if you enjoyed lemon decor for the summer as much as I do, make sure you head on over and check that video out. I will have it linked at the end of the video. Now that I have completed the bottom, I move on to painting it in this coastal blue acrylic paint. It's actually not acrylic paint, it is chalk paint. Sorry about that. It is from my dollar store and more store, and I love this color. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a duck egg blue from Annie Sloan. And I'm just painting the frame on the outside and then the top. So I don't know if you can actually see, but I am creating a bit of a small coastal tray that will hold some of those votive candle holders that I will be painting shortly. So to create my frosted glass paint, I am adding some of this Wilton bright blue color, just a little bit on the end of a toothpick. And I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of Mod Podge, and I'm using the matte Mod Podge. And then you want to mix that up until you achieve the color that you're going for. I was going for that bright blue color. Once my paint was ready, I took a sponge brush and painted all of my votive candle holders in 2 coats. Once these had a chance to dry, you can see they turned out perfect. I couldn't be more pleased. Actually, my friend Sandra from the Schwann's Nest told me about this technique, so I researched it and thought I use it instead of going out and buying some of the frosted glass spray paint. Then I proceeded to wrapping it up with some jute rope. I just did about 3 rows of it.
I think this tray turned out so cute and I can't wait to use it in decorating my bathroom. My project number 3, I have to say, was the most involved and I think my favorite one. I will be making a lantern. I love decorating with lanterns. And for this lantern, I'm using these 2 circles that I got a package of them at Dollarama. This candle, the hurricane vase or candle came from Dollar Tree, and then I'm using some of those garden sticks as well as some nautical rope. So I'm tracing the vase around because I want to cut the middle out, and I'm using my X-Acto knife to cut it out. So once I cut it out, I pop it out, and then I take some sandpaper that's just from Dollar Tree and smooth the inside out. So just all those little loose pieces of wood don't get caught up in my fingers. And when that's done, I just slide it over top of the opening of the vase, and then I glue the bottom of the vase to the other circle, but making sure that I have the distance right. I mark it off just so I know exactly where to put it. And once that's in place, I take these sticks, measure where I want to cut them, and then I cut all of them. I am using 8 of these for this project, and again I'm using just my cutters to cut the wood off. It's pretty much cutting the tip off is what I'm doing. And then I take these sticks and I hot glue them. First I go in 3, 6, 9, and 12, and then I go in between each of those sections. Once I had it exactly the way I wanted, these sticks were spaced out perfectly. I love the way this looks. Originally, I was going to keep it this way, but then I decided that adding a little bit of that coastal gray would fit perfectly for this summer DIY projects that I'm making. You could also stain your wood, but I would advise you, if you do so, to do that before you assemble the pieces, just so they look all the same. I did a very light coat, and some of the wood grain on these sticks actually did show through, which I thought was pretty cool. And then I add this nautical rope, but I wrap some wire around it. It is just some gardening wire type of thing that I'm wrapping around it. It was very easy to use. I just wanted to give it that silver or that metal look at the end. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. Once I wrapped it all around, I just hot glue the rope to make sure you do it to the even sticks so they are opposite of each other. So I absolutely love the way this turned out. I think it's gonna look great with the tall hurricane candle. So I'm starting off with these, we call them Muskoka chairs, but they're also called Adirondack chairs, and I picked those up at a local supplier for, I think they were 2 for $1.20. I will link it down below. I'm pretty sure you can find some of them at dollar stores as well. This was just a little bit easier to get. So I give them a coat of white acrylic paint. So once I finished painting these Muskoka chairs, I set them aside, and now I moved on to a project number 2 that was part of the project number 1 as well. And I will be making mini pillows to go onto the chairs. So I have this material that I'm still working through. It is a canvas that I picked up at a dollar store. It was a drop sheet canvas, and I am just cutting it in these 2 pieces in half to create pillows that will go to the back. I have been loving creating these mini pillows for my tier tray. I did one for my decor, and it just looks so cute and gives the tier tray a different texture and a bit of a different style of decorating, but I love it. So once I had cut these in half, I will be hot gluing the 3 sides, and then I will be stuffing it with some stuffing. And you don't need a lot of it because the pillow is fairly small. So before you stuff it, you want to turn the little pillows inside out or right side in, so that way you don't see any of the leftover pieces on the edges that you had glued around. I am using just the back of a paintbrush just to push out the corners. This was a little bit hard because it's such a tiny pillow. And then I proceeded to stuffing them, and typically I would fold the ends in and then hot glue them together, but because this was so tiny, I have just hot glued the ends together, but I used some of these clips just to hold it together while I was gluing. So at that same supplier that I picked up the Muskoka chairs, I had picked up these tiny little nautical wood pieces, and there is a sailboat, a lighthouse, and an anchor. And I will be painting the lighthouse in red, the sailboat in like coastal blue, and then the anchor in white. Once they were dried, I used crafting tweezers to pick them up, add glue, and then I glued them on to the pillows. I would like to apologize for the bird noises and nature noises in the background. We had a flood in our kitchen, and I have huge fans from the contractor here to dry everything off, so I have to move outside to record the voiceover. I hope you can understand. I think these turned out so cute, and they're definitely going to be a conversation pieces at a gathering because they look so cute. My next project, I have these mini clay pots. I was going to use 4, then decided just to use 3, and I will be making a buoy. So the way I make this is I start by gluing these together. So I'm also showing you that I will be using this snowflake. You could use styrofoam. I hate the way styrofoam sounds, and I didn't have anybody here to cut styrofoam pieces for me. So I'm using this thick snowflake, and I will be tracing it a circle around. I will be drawing a circle and then cutting it out, and that will be my bottom piece. it is nice and thick, so it will work just as good and give me that same look as the styrofoam would as well. So now it's time to paint it, and I am painting the big part of it with white acrylic paint, and then I'm going to be adding a light blue and a darker blue stripes with some white in the middle. And then I will be adding some gray paint, just light gray paint to the top of it. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, welcome. My name is Sonja and you are watching my DIY channel. I host a challenge like this, like I said, once a month, where I invite the creators to join me and share their DIYs. I typically have a theme, whether it's a theme of what to make or what type of materials to use. If, like I said, if you're not subscribed, I would love it if you consider subscribing, pressing the notification bell so you don't miss out any of my future uploads. I do Dollar Tree DIYs often, as well as some furniture makeovers and thrift store upcycles. So make sure that notification bell is on so you don't miss out any of my future uploads. I also have several other channels. If you want to visit those, they are linked in the description box. So once my clay pots have dried, I glue them to that round foam piece, and then I also glue just a piece of rope on top. I think this is such a great piece to add to my tier tray. It has the coastal colors that I'm using to decorate it with. So now I'm moving on to this very simple DIY. I've had this lantern since Christmas and I've been just moving it around, not sure what to do with it. And then I came across, while searching for some coastal decor, I came across a lantern that was painted in this coastal light blue color. Well, that one was probably an antique that was in that color, but I absolutely loved it, and I thought, well, I have a lantern, that I can recreate this and give it some new life and actually use it. And this is what I did. Like I said, very simple $1.25 DIY. I did leave some of that black to show through to make the lantern look a little bit aged and antiqued. Another great DIY that will add so much texture to your tray or to any decor is I'm using these votive candles. This is my last one that I have. I used some in my last coastal DIY, and I'm using some of this nautical rope. And this anchor as well that came from that supplier. I paint this anchor white and let it dry. And while the anchor is drying, I proceed on gluing this nautical rope around the votive tea light candle holder. I love using nautical rope, not just for coastal decor, but for really any. I think it's a great DIY material to use for fall as well as Christmas.
And sometimes even in your winter decor that's not Christmas, it looks good as well. So once I wrapped it all around, I take my anchor and just glue it on. I think this is like another very simple DIY, and that's gonna look great on your tier tray. Tray. Another one is also a sign, and this one I am using my live edge wood that I picked up at the your dollar store with more, and then I just write beach on it. Now this blue was a little bit brighter than I wanted it to be, so I end up sanding it down and also dry brushing some white acrylic paint over it just to soften it up. I like how cloudy the blue had made it because I didn't wait for the marker to dry completely, so I would pull it through while sanding it. Well, here is how I decorated my tier tray, and I absolutely love it. I think it's such a fun tray, and it has so many different unique pieces on there, and I barely spent any money in creating these. I think all of it definitely came under $15. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.